John Olson is going to be our Democrat of the day today. Senate District 20, which is just kind of south and west here of the Twin Cities metro area. He's kind enough today to join us to talk about his campaign. John, how are you today?
I'm having a great day. How about you?
I'm doing very well. It is kind of pretty to have orange sunshine. Are you seeing it down there where you're at in your district?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I noticed that this morning I actually teach over at Carleton College, and my first class was of the term started this morning, and I left home about 7 o'clock, and the sun was starting to come up, and it was a tremendously red sun, and I thought to myself, well, I can see the fires are drifting our way.
Well,
so,
and it is just remarkable that they're that bad out there, and hopefully everyone out there is safe, and hopefully they can get those under control before too long. We here in Minnesota, we just the worst thing we've got is the strange color to the sunrise, which is, I guess, a blessing, but at the same time, it has been stressful times indeed, which makes someone like you, John, what prompted you to run for office this year, this time around?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did a career in the U.S. Navy. I spent 4 years at Annapolis and then 21 years on active duty as an intelligence officer.
Thank you for your service,
and I retired and came back home in 2011. And I was fine just sort of sitting back and helping my mom and my brother take care of my dad, who was in the advanced stages of Alzheimer's at that point. And I got into a bit of a teaching career, Metro State University and their School of Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice, and then I've been teaching over at Carleton College pretty regularly in their political science department as well. But I watched with dismay at the election results in 2016. Couldn't believe what was happening to our country. And over the course of the last few years, I've been deeply disturbed by the systemic dismantling of our national institutions and the creation of a truly hyper-partisan political divide in our state. And I decided that I thought, based on my 25 years of leadership experience, including a tour as a diplomat as a U.S. Naval Attaché in Helsinki, Finland, and my time teaching courses here over the last 8 years, that I had more to give, more in the tank to give to my community. And I made the fateful decision almost a year ago now in early October to jump into this race because I really want to try and heal this partisan divide, and I want to get us away from politics and get us back to public policy where we actually solve these shared challenges we face as Minnesotans. So that's my motivation for running, is to basically solve problems. It's what I've been doing my entire adult life.
John, thank you very much for your service, by the way. I'm U.S. Army for 4 years. Didn't have nearly the prestigious career you did, but my goodness, what an actual honor to have you as a Minnesotan. With the great career you've had, and it's just a gem to have you teaching here at universities. I imagine, to bring your life experience to those processes. You talk about the hyper partisan nature. And I understand, and there's this tendency to sort of say, hey, both sides, you got to come to the table. The problem that we've had is we have one political party who feels bipartisan is allowing the Democrats into the room to sit down and witness what they do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, because trust me, I get frustrated at the amount of times I see accolade and concession after accolade and concession from the Democrats to just try to get 4 Republicans or 1 Republican to sign on to a bill. The reality is how talk about the challenge of trying to fix a system which, for the most part, I mean, I hear what you're saying. You want to work with the other side. I remember Reagan Republicans. They used to work together with Democrats all the time. How can you fix this system if the one side is not even willing to, and most of the time, to even sit down and talk with you?
That's a great question as well. I appreciate you asking it. I'm glad you're throwing the softball ones to me rather than the fastballs with a hell of a lot of English on them. So here's what I would say. I, too, remember what it was like here in Minnesota when all of us considered ourselves to be both fiscal conservatives and social liberals at the same time. And I left home in 1986 to go off on my Navy career. I was frankly deeply dismayed at the divide that I saw when I got back home, and it's only become worse. And I think part of that is that we've lost the ability to trust one another. And without trust, you're never going to be able to move forward in a meaningful way. So I, from my perspective, as somebody who spent 25 years out there in the Navy, generally speaking, amongst a lot of people who were more conservative than me, but all of us committed to the future of this nation. Every one of us a patriot, caring deeply about our nation, regardless of our political views. I think part of what I bring to the table as a retired commander in the Navy is the ability to reach across the aisle in a truly meaningful way, to speak to people on the conservative side. And now, we both of our parties have people who kind of move out to the far ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people in the middle who still want to work together. So the question is, can you achieve a victory just in reaching across the aisle and establishing that kind of trust once again, to sit down and talk about meaningful solutions? And what my experiences have been here in this district, that is a truly purple district, is that I've had good success going and talking with people who were far more conservative than me, but they respect the service that I gave to this nation. They're willing to listen to what I have to say, and we start the dialogue. And that is where it begins. You start that dialogue, you build trust, you move forward in ways where we respect each other's opinions and views, and we try to find places where we can meet in the middle or find common ground. And once we start to establish those kinds of relationships and achieve those small breakthroughs, we can open it up for much larger breakthroughs. And I would tell you that that's what diplomacy is all about.
There you go,
so I have a little bit of experience in that world.
Well, and also should be mentioned, Jesse Ventura won the governor's race. Why? Because he came on out and sounded like a throwback. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a socially liberal. And, that does resonate. A lot of people, in matter of fact, I'm not for, wasting finances, but at the same time.
No, nobody is.
Exactly. So there is that appeal there. Your district, too, and I think one of the things that you talk about, you've got a district where we should talk a little bit about higher education. You're Northfield, so I believe St. Olaf is in your district.
St. Olaf and Carlton are both in Northfield. I actually live in Cedar Lake Township to the west of Elko and Newmarket, but I do teach at Carlton. So, and I have a lot of the college students at both campuses have jumped in to help me with my campaign, and I'm deeply appreciative for their enthusiasm and support.
Well, and also you although you're not seeing, I don't think St. Peter's in Senate District 20. Obviously, you have you have the impact of the college that's there too. Talk about this, because you truly have one of your industries this district has to look at is higher education.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and I would tell you that I'm in the interview process right now, trying to get hired by the people of my district to represent them in St. Paul. And if you care deeply, like I do, about public service, you're not running on your own issues. You shouldn't be out there trying to grind an axe on your own personal issues. Your goal should be to represent the people of your district on the issues that matter the most to them. And very briefly, I would just tell you that hands down, number one across the board, all the people that I've talked to, their biggest concern has been the rising costs of healthcare and everything connected to that. And second, because we live in a farm-heavy district, has been the impacts on farmers over government policies and weather and COVID over the last 3 years. And then third has been education. Frankly, everybody wants their kid or their grandkid to do better than they did, and we know that the mechanism to achieve that is a good education. And Minnesota, when I was a kid, set the bar nationally as one of the top states in the union for our educational outcomes. We still have a really well-educated population. That's one of the reasons why we do so well economically here with a lot of the higher tech companies that we have in our state. But I think we can do a heck of a lot more. So not only are we talking about the compulsory education, K through 12, I think we need to look hard at making bigger investments in the pre-K, early childhood education, to get kids on the right path. And then, frankly, we need to find ways to lower the cost of tuition for students who enter college, because nobody should go into tremendous debt to get a bachelor's degree or advanced degrees, when that's really a strategic investment in the future of our state and in the economy of our state. And let me add one more thing. We know that about 30% of the students who graduate from high school in the state of Minnesota they don't go on to college because they don't want to, or they're just not interested in, or they're interested in some other profession. But right now, we don't do nearly enough to prepare those high school students for a career track right after they graduate from high school. So I've been advocating on behalf of programs where public-private partnership, where we connect juniors and seniors in high school with meaningful career paths that they can look at and learn about, maybe start even in an apprenticeship program. So right after the day after they graduate, they might be able to go to work as a real apprentice or even at a journeyman level in one of the skilled trades. And I don't know if you've had any tradespeople over working at your house lately, but I can tell you they make good money.
Well, and
it's a pretty penny that they're able to charge. So that's a good career path.
I can't tell you how glad. I mean, we seem to. When I was a kid, there was always people went to the military, someone went to college, someone into the trades, and there seems to have been this vilification of the trades route.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I talked to a lot of the union guys here. They have training programs. They want people. They got more work than they know what to do with. Carpenters, pipe fitters, plumbers, they need people. And if we actually presented that as is more of the viable option, and like I said, I have no idea how the vilification of it happened, but it almost like, oh, it's beneath us to have this. No, it's not. That's a good job that's going to pay you good money and give you a good life and good skill set. And I think you're exactly right. I mean, making sure those options are on the table, other than either college or military or maybe going to the farm, having having those other options on the table, I think are so important, because I think there feels like there is a limit there.
Yeah, and frankly, on that same vein with the skilled trades and a lot of these other professions that organized labor represents, I would tell you that that I care deeply about the Democrat Farmer Labor Party. I was raised in a union family. My dad was a career public school teacher in Bloomington. My grandfather retired out of a job serving as the secretary-treasurer of Teamsters Local 289. And I've got a bunch of cousins who are in various trades as well. So for me, I grew up in a union family, and I believe deeply that the Democrat Farmer Labor Party is the best party to represent not only organized labor, but farmers too. And I think we, as a DFL party, have to get back to remembering about the fact that not only do we care deeply about the environment, but we care deeply about outcomes for farmers and rewarding them for being the good stewards of the land they are, and putting a heck of a lot more emphasis on protecting organized labor going forward, because we need to regrow the numbers of people in the organized labor movement. It gives them a heck of a lot more bargaining power, and then government can be involved a heck of a lot less than it is right now in trying to establish fair working conditions, because a powerful labor union will do that very effectively all on its own.
I've been to rural Minnesota a few times in the last few weeks, and I go on out, and as a matter of fact, I was down in Belle Plaine in your district. And one of the things people say is, well, go and look in the country and look at the signs. And they're talking about the Trump signs, but the signs I was seeing, I'd see a group of farmhouses, and I'd see one house decked out in Trump gear, but what I was also seeing is 3 more houses right next to it for sale. You talk about the farmers. Let's talk about the margins here. Farming is, you don't have a $24,000, $25,000 a year margin anyway on that business. And there's a lot that the anxiety, the frustration, the depression that's coming into the ag sector right now, because they're seeing farmers who have seen their lifelong markets dry up because of this trade fiasco that Trump started. And the question is, where are we going to have a market for our products? This is it's a complex issue, but obviously there are some things the state can do to step in to help out the farmer.
Yeah. So here's what I would tell you, and this is coming from a guy who grew up in South Minneapolis. Did I have an uncle who owned a farm? Yeah. Was he a full-time farmer? No, not really. He rented out his land to other people who were professional farmers. But then I went off and spent 25 years of my life in the Navy. And came back home to Minnesota, and I've been teaching college classes. So I really didn't have a lot of background in ag until about a year ago when I stepped into this race. So it's been a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, trying to understand the ag industry here in the state of Minnesota, which is an incredibly important business sector for the economy of our state. But what I've come to see as an outsider looking in, which I think is a kind of a benefit when you're looking at very complex issues, to have an opportunity to look at it in a very objective way, is that the whole system right now is designed such that the farmers at the very beginning of the whole food supply chain, they take the greatest risk. They spend an awful lot, to get row crops in the ground or working a year in advance on raising livestock of whatever kind they choose to do. They got to have the shackle space and the processing side. But they put all of this effort in at the very beginning of the process. And then the rest of it is completely out of their hands. They have virtually no say in what happens after things leave their farm. So if you look at the fact that the processors, and there's been a consolidation in the numbers of processors out there on the livestock side, the distribution side, and then the retail side for the whole food supply chain, all three of those other areas, they make money no matter what's going on. But the farmers, they are really vulnerable to interruptions in the supply chain or impacts based on federal policy, trade policy, and things like that. So Minnesota farmers have been getting kicked in the kneecaps the last 3 years, frankly, by not only the trade practices of this administration, but also the weather last year hammered a lot of the row croppers. And then this year, COVID really disrupted the livestock folks. Now things are getting back to normal; they're getting a little bit better, but still, it's a lack of consistency. It's a lack of certainty as to what the markets are going to look like. And I would say that at a state level, we should look long and hard about how we maybe address the overall system, so that we give a little more power back to the farmers, who are the most important people in the whole food supply chain process. And frankly, this is one of those things that I've come to be very frustrated about. DFL policies need to do more for Minnesota's farmers. I mean, farmers were a core element of our party for decades, and we've sort of lost them over the last 15 years. And frankly, I'm angry about that. I am making it part of my mission to bring the F back into the DFL, and frankly, to retain the L in the DFL, because I'm a little concerned about a lot of the labor groups. I don't know if we've effectively represented them as well as we should have, and that's going to change when I get to St. Paul in January.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, you are the first politician that has done something, that has addressed something that I have thought about for a while, which is trying to offset ag finances at the beginning of the season, so you are not having, come August and September, farmers sitting there and wondering, is this the year I lose the farm? If we don't look at how the financial system, the financial metrics around agriculture works, and we address that and not make it such a gun to the farmer's head, then this is 100%. I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is a system, much like how education funding in rural America has failed. You have to look at how the ag financing is, because it shouldn't be a make or break thing. It shouldn't be a year of stress just to see if you make it. I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
It's been kind of heartbreaking, frankly, going around the district and talking to farmers in all different areas of ag, and hear the stress in their voices and kind of the agony they feel about, are they going to make it or not?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're $2 million in the hole, hoping that your production for that year is going to help offset some of that, and you're going to have a good year next year to try and get the rest of that debt out. I mean, it's crazy to me how this whole ag system works today, because it's designed to drive the family farm out of business and to consolidate into ever larger operations, so that eventually factory farming scale will take over. And I would tell you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'll say I worked for 5 years in Iowa. You are 100% correct. And I just keep asking myself, if we just basically fronted a year's worth of cost for every farmer, the financial well-being of rural America would almost overnight be fixed. And considering the amount of money we're spending on these ag, programs right now, and some of these, these kickbacks that are going primarily to the large corporate farms, if we just took half that money and just went into the small farms, my goodness, almost every community in this country would have the best financial year in 50 years. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. And I would tell you this. Let me finish with this, and then I'm sure you want to move on to your next topic. But here in Minnesota, we have always prized our family farmers in our state, And the system right now is designed, like we said, to drive them out in favor of ever larger combinations. So I think it's time right now, while all of these things are going on that have disrupted the ag system, do we as Minnesotans care enough about our fellow Minnesotans who have lived on farms for generations, people who want to get into farming now, new farmers? Do we care enough about that system? Do we care about the people who have an emotional connection to the land, who want to be good stewards of the land and care for the land? Do we prize that enough to protect those people from the market forces that are designed, frankly, at a federal level, to drive people out so that industrial-scale farming takes over? And I think that's a question we need to that's a topic we need to discuss as members of this state, and certainly it's something we need to have an open discussion about at the state legislature. Because if we care about it, then we better start putting our money where our mouth is and start setting up family farmers for success.
Well, and you said it. We need someone who has the guts to bring this topic up, because this is a long, hard look in the mirror, especially on how we treat our ag sector. And if we don't do this, John, my goodness, I apologize. I said I was going to take 20 minutes. We were about 20. We were going a little bit longer now. John Olson for Minnesota Senate. This is Senate District 20 once again. I'm going to say this. This is so far my highest recommendation. Sweet Lord, we need John Olson in St. Paul. Holy cow. Just on the ag sector, the trades ideas, my God, these are ideas we need in the DFL to make that DFL as vibrant as it has ever been. John, if people want to volunteer, once again, you're just southwest of the metro, and I tell people all this all the time. Help your local DFLers by all means. But if you're in a relatively safe district, get out, help John Olson, Senate District 20, just once again, just south and west of the metro area, Northfield, Belle Plaine, down in that direction. If people want to volunteer or donate, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can go to my campaign website. It's John, Jon, that's how I spell it, John, it's John Olson for MN Senate, and the Olson is Olson. So JONOLSON, John Olson for MNSenate.com. They can find all kinds of information about me on there. Unlike most candidates, I have put forward very detailed policy papers on the positions I've taken so far, because I believe strongly in the power of public policy, and I want people to know exactly who I am and what I stand for. And that is very different than my opponent.
By all means, I apologize for going along with you, but when you get to St. Paul, when we get you into St. Paul, you're going to come back. I want to talk to you every time we have an ag issue, because my goodness, this is the breath of fresh air. I mean, the Democratic Party is a vibrant party, but if it's going to be a vibrant party, it's got to be a vibrant party across the board. And John is bringing back some old school ideas that we need to remember for the DFL. John Olson for MNSenate.com. John, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me on. You have a great afternoon.
My pleasure. My strongest recommendation. Holy cow.